All right, so the Federal Reserve just cut interest rates. And yeah, on the surface, that sounds like a win, like finally some relief. But dig a little deeper, and this move is actually screaming that something is off. Inflation is still climbing, tariffs are pushing prices higher, and yet the Fed pulled the trigger anyway. That does not happen in a vacuum. Donald Trump has been leaning on the Fed for years, and now that pressure is starting to show because Fed independence is looking weaker by the day, and by 2026, Kevin Hasid is expected to step into real power inside the Federal Reserve. Markets already feel it. Assets are popping, the dollar is slipping, and something big is shifting under the hood. What makes this rate cut wild is the timing. Inflation is not beaten. Prices are still hot across the economy, but the federal funds rate is now sitting around 3.5%, a level you usually see when the economy is stressed, not when it is cruising. And here is the kicker. Second quarter GDP just came in at 3.8%, which is strong by any modern standard. Historically, rate cuts show up when growth is slowing, jobs are falling apart, or a recession is already knocking. This time, the economy is still running, and the Fed is easing anyway. Inside the Fed, this decision was messy. The December vote was split, with several members fighting to keep rates where they were. That kind of division matters because it tells you policymakers are nervous about lighting the inflation fire again, and they have reason to be. Jerome Powell straight up admitted that goods inflation is picking up, and tariffs are a big part of it. When tariffs hit, prices do not just stop at the border. They move through the system slowly, from importers to manufacturers to stores and finally to your wallet. The Fed cut rates before those costs fully showed up, which is a risky move. On top of that, the Fed is flying half blind. The government shutdown messed with economic data, so decisions are being made without a full picture. Look at the dot plot and it is chaos. Some officials see cuts, some see hikes, some see nothing. Markets hate that kind of confusion. When guidance breaks down, the system leans on liquidity, and that is exactly what is happening. Starting December 12th, the Fed began buying $40 billion in Treasury bills. They will not call it quantitative easing, but come on, the balance sheet is growing and QT is basically dead. These purchases run through April, meaning fresh liquidity is flowing again. Meanwhile, the Treasury is dumping short-term debt like crazy, deficits are exploding, total debt is now $38 trillion, and interest costs are over $1.2 trillion a year. Short-term debt rolls faster, and when the Fed buys it, money moves faster through the system, pumping assets but feeding inflation. That is why stocks are up. The dollar index slipped below 99, gold is pushing toward $4,300, and silver just hit $63. Markets are not pricing stability anymore, they're pricing dilution. And while asset holders celebrate, regular people pay the price with higher import costs, higher groceries, and higher energy bills. Inflation becomes a quiet tax. As Powell fades toward 2026 and political pressure ramps up, the message is clear. More cuts may feel good now, but they box the Fed in later. So the real question is simple. Is the Federal Reserve quietly doing quantitative easing again under a different name? And what happens when this liquidity wave finally hits the real economy?